Hi dear students, welcome to Sapphire Future Academy. Sapphire Future Academy conducting a Sapphire aptitude test on October 2nd, 2023. So, we would like to provide a question discussion section for ZAT exam based on various subjects with some MCQ model type of questions. Now, we are discuss about a topic on biology, that is life processes. These questions that is mainly based on your theory portions that is already studied. So, it is very helpful to you to revise your portions, and then it is more beneficial to your board examination. So, let us start. The first question of this chapter, biology chapter, that is life processes, that is, which of the following are energy foods? Our food materials are classified into different types based on their needs. Some food materials are considered as energy providing food, or some others are building block molecules, or some others are considered as the protective food materials, etc. So, energy providing food materials, that means when you consume or when we consume these food materials, we get enough energy for our daily activities or our metabolism, isn't it? So, what are the different energy providing food materials that is considered as two types, that is carbohydrates and fat. Carbohydrate and fat, that is considered as the energy providing food materials, while proteins are considered as the building block molecules, because proteins are used for our growth, development, as well as our that is act as an enzymes, etc. Enzymes, hormones, almost all these are proteins. So, proteins are considered as the building block molecules, that means our body that is made up of proteinaceous compounds. And then protective food, that means they provide immunity. So, vitamins and minerals are considered as the protective food materials. So, here energy providing food materials, that is carbohydrates and fat. Carbohydrates that is available from our rice, wheat, then underground parts like that of potato, tapioca, etc. And then fatty food that is available from oily food materials, oil seeds, or from meat, etc. Proteins that is available from the peas, meat, etc. So, vitamin and minerals that is from our vegetables as well as fruits, isn't it? So, the question is that which of the following are energy food, that means energy providing food. So, you have already know that this carbohydrate and fats are the energy providing food, and then so we can select which one, this one, this carbohydrates and fats are the energy providing one, proteins are considered as the building block molecules, minerals are considered as the protective one, that means it provide energy, that is provide immunity, and then vitamins and minerals is again considered as the protective food materials that is available from fruits as well as vegetables, and then water that is considered as the universal solvent. So, in a cell, 70 to 90% that is water. So the major component is water, and then all the food materials that is dissolved in water, most of them except lipids, and then it is transported through blood and it reaches to the target regions. And roughage, that means, what is meant by roughage? These are the fibers that is present in our food. This is mainly help for easy digestion as well as absorption. So we can select carbohydrates and fats are the energy providing food materials in which maximum amount of energy that is available from a fat, maximum amount of energy that is available from the fat, and then carbohydrates, that is glucose, fructose, etc. the example for carbohydrates. So from this carbohydrates we get maximum amount of energy fat, and but this carbohydrate, from the carbohydrates we get immediate source of energy, or carbohydrates are considered as the immediate source of energy. Immediate source of energy. Okay, so fats are the food materials that provide maximum amount of energy, and then carbohydrate that provide immediate source of energy. That means when we feel tiredness, we have to consume a fruit juice or rice soup, etc. That means it provide immediate energy. Okay, so we can select the first one, that is carbohydrate and fat. All of you got it? And the next question, the second question, that is about the nutrition. In this chapter we have discussed about photosynthesis, respiration, excretion, digestion, etc. So this question that is mainly based on nutrition. So what is meant by nutrition? It is a method by which nutrients are consumed, that is formed or consumed, that is called a nutrition. So there are different types of nutrition, are there is autotrophic, heterotrophic, isn't it? Mode of nutrition, there is mainly two types, that is autotrophic mode of nutrition and heterotrophic mode of nutrition. Autotrophic and heterotrophic mode of nutrition. So autotrophic mode of nutrition, that means the organisms, or especially plants, they synthesize their own food materials by themselves, that is called autotrophic one. So most of the autotrophic organisms are photosynthetic or chemosynthetic one. So autotrophs, that means they synthesize their own food materials. They synthesize their own food materials, that is called autotrophs. While heterotrophs are, they cannot synthesize food materials, that means they depend on autotrophs or other organism for food materials, that is called heterotrophs. Heterotrophs is again classified into different types, that means sometimes that may be parasites. What is meant by parasites? That means the organism that is completely depend on host, that is depend on other living organism, that is called parasitic one, depend on other living organism, depend on other living organisms. Can you give some example for parasitic one? That means in human body there are lice, then in the case of plants there are different types of parasitic organisms are there, that means Cuscuta, Loranthus, etc. And then different types of worms that is reside in our alimentary canal are the examples for parasitic one. And then another type of this heterotrophic mode of nutrition is saprophytes. Saprophytes. So what is meant by saprophytes? That is they depend on, that is they absorb nutrients from the, not from the living organism, that is from the dead remains. They depend on dead remains for food materials, that is called saprophytes. And then parasitic, saprophytic, and then this is also known as decomposers because they decompose food materials. So they are called decomposers are there. And then sometimes that is called a holozoic heterotrophic organism. that commonly shows holozoic mode of nutrition. What is meant by holozoic? That means they engulf food materials. They engulf food materials. So here the question is again the mode of nutrition found in fungi. So what is meant by fungi? Fungi is the microscopic organism and it is considered as the eukaryotic decomposers. The main function of this fungus is that they decompose dead remains. So they are not autotrophic one because there is no, in fungus there is a lack of chlorophyll pigments. Chlorophyll pigments or chloroplast is completely absent in fungi, so they are not included in this one autotrophic mode of nutrition. And then parasite, that means they are depend on other living organisms. But here the most important mode of nutrition that is found in fungus is that, what is that? As saprophytes, because they are commonly known as decomposers. Decomposers, that means they break down dead remains, and then that's why they are coming under saprophytes. Saprophytes that is commonly depend on other dead remains as a source of food. So we can say is that fungus that is they are non-photosynthetic one, not green in color. For example, yeast. Give some example for fungus, that is yeast. Then mushroom, etc. are some example for fungi, and they are considered as the decomposers, or so their mode of nutrition that is especially that is coming under heterotrophs, but special type that is called a saprophytic one. In human beings are heterotrophic one. The mode of nutrition that is commonly found in kingdom Animalia, that is called holozoic. Animals commonly shows holozoic mode of nutrition, that is holozoic, that is engulf their food materials. Plants that is commonly exhibit, plants as well as algae exhibit autotrophic mode of nutrition because they are photosynthetic one, and then parasitic mode of nutrition that is shown by worms, lice, as well as certain plants like that of Cuscuta, Loranthus, Rafflesia, etc. So here we can select the answer D. And then the next question that is related to our digestive system. So what is meant by digestion? Digestion, that is the breakdown of complex food materials into simple one, isn't it? So in our body there is a definite digestive system is there. That is our digestive system, which mainly consists of an alimentary canal and a group of digestive enzymes or digestive glands. Alimentary canal and digestive glands that is included in this digestive system. So here the question is that which of the following is the correct sequence of body part in human alimentary canal? Human alimentary canal, that is considered as the complete digestive system in which there are two openings are there, that is mouth and anus. Mouth and anus. So our digestive system that is start from mouth. Our digestive system that is start from a mouth, and then next part that is mouth that is open into buccal, that is inner side of mouth, that is called a buccal cavity. And then esophagus, that is called a food pipe, and then next one that is a stomach, and the next part that is small intestine, then a large intestine, and the last one that is anus. So this is considered as the complete digestive system that is start from mouth and end in anus. So the first part that is mouth that is open into, that is the inner side of this mouth, that is called buccal cavity. So that encloses tongue and teeth. Tongue and teeth. So in our buccal cavity there are 4 different types of teeth are there, that is incisors, canines, premolar and molar. And then our dental formula is that 2, 1, 2, 3 divided by 2, 1, 2, 3. That means 2 incisors, 1 canines, 2 premolar and then molar on first or left upper half, and then here this is the on lower half and then on the right side. So total, that means we can say represent like this 2, 1, 2, 3 divided by 2, 1, 2, 3 into 2. So totally total incisors is that 2 plus 2 4, 4 into 2, that means 8, that means 2 on this side and then 2 on the lower side into 2, that means on the right side. Okay. So likewise the number of canines is that 1 plus 1 2 into 2, that is 4, then again premolar, that become 8 and then molar 12. Okay. So 2 1 2 3 divided by 2 1 2 3 is equal to 32. Okay. And then esophagus is considered as this is the long tube like structure and this is considered as the food pipe, food that is passes from mouth to stomach. And then next portion that is stomach, stomach that is considered as a sac like structure that encloses, that is considered as the temporary storehouse of food materials before digestion and then before fully digestion. And then next part that is small intestine as the highly coiled regions, these are the regions of small intestine, and then this is considered as the principal organ for digestion as well as absorption. And then next one that is large intestine and the last one that is anus. Okay. So let us discuss this question. Which of the following is the correct sequence of body part in human alimentary canal? That means mouth, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, anus. So in this case mouth, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, here is the esophagus. So this is the wrong one. And the next one mouth, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, this is correct one. Then next one mouth, stomach, esophagus. So the position of esophagus is just before stomach. So it is again wrong. And the last one mouth, esophagus, stomach, large intestine, then small intestine. That means here there is a reversibility, isn't it? So which one is the correct answer? This one. Second will be the correct one. Mouth, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine and then anus. So we can select the second one. Okay. And then let us discuss the fourth question. The contraction and expansion movement of the wall of food pipe that is called esophagus. Esophagus is considered as the food pipe that connect mouth to stomach, isn't it? So this esophagus that shows a special type of wave-like movements, that is mainly due to the presence of smooth muscles. There are smooth muscles that is found in esophagus. So these smooth muscles that shows a peculiar type of wave-like movements. These wave-like movements that is mainly help for the easy passage of food materials from mouth to stomach, isn't it? So what is the name of that movement? This movement is called the peristalsis or the peristaltic movement. This is a special type of wave-like movements. So wave-like movements are shown by smooth muscles. Smooth muscles that is commonly found in our internal organs and it is considered as the involuntary muscles. Okay. So The special type of movements that is called peristalsis, that is mainly held for the easy passage of food materials from mouth to stomach, that is called peristalsis. Then windpipe that is food pipe that is called esophagus. And then what is meant by translocation? Translocation is the transportation of substance or materials from one place to another. Long distance transportation. Long distance transportation, that is called a translocation. For example, the transportation of food materials. Transportation of food materials in plants, that is takes place through phloem. It is considered as a translocation. Likewise, the transportation of water and minerals. Transportation of water and minerals, that is through a xylem. It is again considered as the translocation, that is transport of food materials or water or minerals from one place to another, means it is a long distance transportation. That is mainly takes place through xylem and phloem. The transport of food materials through phloem, that is considered as the bidirectional, or we can say is that multidirectional, because it is takes place from leaves to all the part of the plants. Leaves, that is the organ where food materials are synthesized. So from the leaves it is transported to root, stem, a leaf itself, etc. So, but the transportation of water and minerals to the xylem, that is considered as the unidirectional. Why they are called unidirectional? Because it is takes place from a root to aerial parts. Okay, so you just recall all these questions that is related to translocation. Then what is meant by transpiration? Transpiration, that is the loss of water in the form of water vapors through stomata. Transpiration, that is the loss of water. Loss of water as water vapors. Loss of water as a water vapors through stomata. Stomata, what is meant by stomata? Stomata are the small openings that is found on the epidermis or the upper part of a leaf, that is guarded by means of two guard cells, isn't it? So, that is called a transpiration. And then what is meant by digestion? Digestion is the breakdown of complex food materials into a simple absorbable form, isn't it? So, here we can select the answer, that is peristaltic movement. This is considered as the wave-like movements, that is shown by esophagus, that is mainly held for easy passage of food materials from mouth to stomach. Okay. And then our next question. Fifth question, which region of the alimentary canal absorb a digested food, that is our digestive process. Digestion, that means it is the breakdown of a complex food materials into simple one, isn't it? For example, if we consume starch, after digestion that is converted into glucose or other monosaccharides. When we consume proteins, after digestion that is converted into amino acids, or suppose fat, that is break down into fatty acid and glycerol. This is the simple form and this is considered as the complex form, and then so these processes are called digestion. So the digestion of food materials that is takes place mainly mouth, stomach and then small intestine. Digestion that is takes place in these three parts, and then in small intestine there is a secretion of liver as well as pancreas. The secretion of liver and pancreas that is reaches to small intestine. So digestion that is start, that is from here. So here there is a digestion of carbohydrate, that is digestion of starch, that is takes place, that is start from the mouth, and then when it is reaches to stomach, here the digestion of protein, and then due to the presence of this bile there is a digestion of lipids, and then this pancreas as well as small intestine that is responsible for the digestion of all food materials, that is starch, proteins, lipids, nucleic acids. Okay, so the question is that which region of the alimentary canal absorb digested food? That means that after digestion all these food materials that is absorbed into small intestine, because small intestine that possess a finger like structure. These finger like structures are called villi or villus. So inside this villus there is blood vessels as well as lymph vessels are there. Blood vessels as well as lymph capillaries are there. So lipid, that is fatty acid and glycerol, that is absorbed into this lymph capillaries. All other food materials after digestion that is absorbed into blood vessels. Okay. So which region of the alimentary canal absorb the digestive food material? That means digestion and absorption that is takes place in mouth, stomach, small intestine, etc. But the principal organ for absorption and digestion that is considered as the small intestine. Small intestine. That is digestion of carbohydrate that is start from mouth, but it is completely absorbed in the small intestine. Digestion of protein that is start from stomach, but it is completely absorbed in small intestine, not large intestine, small intestine. And then lipids, that is digestion that is start from this liver, that is liver secretion that is reaches to duodenum, but the absorption that is takes place in the small intestine. That means almost all food materials that is absorbed mainly into the small intestine due to the presence of these finger like structures that is called villi. So we can say this one is the correct answer. That is, to the large intestine there is an absorption of water as well as certain drugs that is occurs, and then liver that is mainly held for the production of bile, not the absorption, production of bile, and then a stomach that is mainly held for the absorption of simple sugars. Simple sugars, less amount of water, alcohol, etc. So small intestine that help for the absorption of almost all the digested food materials, so we can select a B option. Then the next question, digestion of food start from which organ of the human digestive system? Digestion of food materials that is start from where? From where? That is digestion of food materials that is takes place in mouth, stomach, small intestine, isn't it? So the digestion of carbohydrate that is start from mouth and it is continue to the stomach, small intestine, etc. And then digestion of protein that is start from stomach and it is continue to a small intestine, and then digestion of lipids that is start from the secretion of liver, that is again reaches to small intestine, and then so the further digestion that is takes place in intestinal juice as well as pancreatic juice. So here the question is, digestion of food start from which organ? Which organ? That means mouth, isn't it? So mouth is the first part where digestion occurs. That is digestion of which food materials that is takes place in mouth? That is carbohydrates, because in mouth there are three digestive glands are there. That means salivary glands. Mouth that encloses salivary glands. These salivary glands, that there are three types of salivary glands are there. That is a parotid gland, sublingual gland, submaxillary gland. These together known as salivary gland, and the secretion of the salivary gland that is called as saliva, and the saliva which mainly help for carbohydrate digestion, because it encloses an enzyme that is called amylase enzyme, salivary amylase or amylase enzyme. This enzyme that is responsible for the digestion of carbohydrates or starch. Starch is the carbohydrate. So, salivary amylase and then some amount of lysozyme that is destroy pathogens or germs. Okay, so digestion of food that is start from which organ? That means that is start from mouth. That is mainly due to the presence of saliva, and the saliva that encloses salivary amylase. Amylase enzyme that is mainly help for the digestion of starch. Okay, and then esophagus. Esophagus that is help for the easy movement of food materials by means of a special type of movements that is called peristalsis. Then pancreas that release juice for fat breakdown. Then pancreas is also involved in digestion, but it is food digestion that is start from mouth, not from the pancreas. So, pancreas that is mainly help for the digestion of all the type of food materials, that is carbohydrates, protein, lipids and nucleic acids. All the food materials that is digested due to the presence of this digestive juice that is produced by pancreas. And then a stomach that help in mixing food with the digestive juice. Stomach that is help for mixing because it possesses mucus secretion as well as an enzyme that is called pepsinogen in an inactive form, and this enzyme that is activated by means of HCl that is produced by stomach. So, digestion that is start from mouth due to the presence of the salivary gland and the secretion of salivary gland that is called saliva. Okay, and then saliva which mainly consists of, which one is the main enzyme? Salivary amylase and lysozyme. Okay, so we can select the first option. And then the next question, seventh question. All of you read the question, that is, what are the products obtained by anaerobic respiration? So, what is meant by respiration? Respiration is the breakdown of food materials. So, by means of respiration, that is respiration are of two different types, that is aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration, that means respiration that is takes place in presence of oxygen. That means aerobic respiration that is takes place in almost all cells. So, there is a availability of oxygen is very essential for aerobic respiration, that is this takes place in presence of oxygen, isn't it? So, this aerobic respiration which mainly consists of first step that is called glycolysis and second one that is called Krebs cycle. So, during glycolysis, glucose or food materials that is break down into pyruvic acid, and then by means of Krebs cycle, pyruvic acid that is converted or break down into carbon dioxide and water, isn't it? But this anaerobic respiration that is takes place in absence of oxygen. In the absence of oxygen, anaerobic respiration that is takes place in the absence of oxygen, and then this anaerobic respiration which mainly consists of glycolysis. Glycolysis is a common step in which glucose that is break down into pyruvic acid, and then second step that is called fermentation. So, there are two types of fermentation, that is a lactic acid fermentation and alcoholic fermentation. Alcoholic fermentation, that is takes place in microorganisms, that is takes place in presence of microorganisms, and then lactic acid fermentation, that is takes place in our body during heavy exercise. So the product of this lactic acid fermentation is that is pyruvic acid that is converted into lactic acid. In the absence of oxygen, this pyruvic acid that is converted, in the absence of oxygen, this pyruvic acid that is converted into lactic acid, that is called lactic acid fermentation. Then alcoholic fermentation, that means this pyruvic acid that is converted into ethyl alcohol, and carbon dioxide. This is called alcoholic fermentation, and this is called lactic acid fermentation. This takes place during baking, brewing, as well as in the microorganism, but lactic acid fermentation, that is takes place in our body during heavy exercise, isn't it? So here, what are the products obtained from anaerobic respiration? What are the products obtained in anaerobic respiration? That is lactic acid plus energy, carbon dioxide, water plus energy, ethyl alcohol, carbon dioxide plus energy, and pyruvate. So here the specification is that in plants, isn't it? So this lactic acid fermentation, that is takes place in our body during heavy exercise. So in plants, that is which type of anaerobic respiration? That is alcoholic fermentation. So the product of this alcoholic fermentation, that is ethyl alcohol or ethanol, then carbon dioxide as well as energy. So this anaerobic respiration, which type? That is called alcohol. Here mentioned, that is alcoholic fermentation. Lactic acid fermentation, that is takes place in animals or especially in the human body during heavy exercise. Okay, so we can select C option, that is ethyl alcohol, carbon dioxide, and that release energy. So as compared to that of aerobic respiration, anaerobic respiration release less amount of energy, but this in the case of this aerobic respiration, large amount, average 36 ATP, that is formed during aerobic respiration, but during anaerobic respiration only 2 ATP are formed. So less amount of energy that is produced during anaerobic respiration. And then, so here in the case of plants, it is considered as the alcoholic fermentation. So the product is ethanol, carbon dioxide, and energy. So we can select C option. And then next we have to discuss next question. Here there is an equation. Which of the equations show the correct conversion of carbon dioxide and water into carbohydrate in plants? So what is the meaning of this question? The synthesis of carbohydrate. So the synthesis of carbohydrate, that is considered as the photosynthesis. The synthesis of carbohydrates or glucose by using carbon dioxide and water, and that process is called a photosynthesis. So what is the question? That is the correct balanced equation of photosynthesis. Correct balanced equation of photosynthesis. So what are the raw materials of photosynthesis? Carbon dioxide and water. So in all these four options there is a carbon dioxide, isn't it? Then which one is the product? That is glucose, C6H12O6. So the first section we have to cancel this one. Here there is equation is incomplete one, and then again, so raw materials are there, carbon dioxide and water, and food materials is glucose, and then the most important importance of the significant role of this photosynthesis, that is there is a high amount of oxygen that is released to outside. This oxygen that is consumed by almost all animals, isn't it? So here which one is the correct equation? That means balanced equation, that is 6CO2 plus 6H2O gives C6H12O6 plus 6O2 plus 12H2O. Here this equation is not balancing. And then in this second case, 6 CO2 plus 6 H2O, C6H12O6 plus 6 O2 plus 12 H2O. Here is again not balancing, and then here chlorophyll is there, but here heat energy, not heat energy, sunlight. So here again these two are wrong, and this one is first eliminated one, and the third option, that is 6 CO2 plus 12 H2O gives glucose plus 6 O2 plus 6 H2O. So it is a balanced equation, and then chlorophyll is the photosynthetic pigments, and then photosynthesis that is takes place in presence of sunlight. That is mainly in the presence of ultraviolet light. Sorry, not in the visible light. Photosynthesis that is takes place in the visible light, that is in VIBGYOR, violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, red, in which maximum photosynthesis that is takes place in the red light. The visible spectrum of solar spectral visible region of solar spectrum. So this one is considered as the correct balanced equation, and then the source of energy, that is sunlight. So during photosynthesis, light energy that is converted into chemical energy. This reaction that is takes place during a light reaction. So the photosynthesis, which mainly consists of two steps, that is a light reaction and a dark reaction. During light reaction, light energy that is converted into chemical energy, that means energy that is stored in the form of ATP, and by using this ATP, food materials, that means synthesis of glucose, that is takes place during dark reaction, and this byproduct of this oxygen that is again released during a light reaction. So the significance of light reaction is that for the production of ATP and releasing of oxygen, and the dark reaction that is mainly held for the synthesis of glucose or carbohydrates. Okay, and then light reaction that is takes place in a grana, and dark reaction that is takes place in the stroma. What is meant by grana and stroma? Suppose this is the structure of chlorophyll, chloroplast, and then the stroma, that is the matrix, and then there is a sac-like structure, and these sac-like structures are called a grana, isn't it? Grana is the site of a light reaction, and stroma is the site of a dark reaction. Okay, so we can select third option. So next we have discussed about the next question. Ninth one. Which of the following is the important characteristics of emphysema? Emphysema is a respiratory disorder by means of smoking. Smoking that is adversely affect our lungs, mainly alveola. What is meant by alveola? Inside the lungs there is numerous sac-like structures that is seen inside the lungs. Suppose this is the lungs. So inside the lungs there are numerous alveoli. There is a sac-like structure that is called alveoli. So there is a, when we observe the clear structure of this alveoli, there is a membrane that covering this alveoli. So due to smoking, the substance like that of nicotine as well as tar that is deposited in the alveoli, and then there is a destruction of this alveoli wall as well as this air sacs that is called alveoli. That disease is called emphysema, that is mainly occurs in smokers. So emphysema is the respiratory disorder that is mainly due to smoking, because the substance that is nicotine as well as tar that is deposited in the alveoli. So that cause heavy destruction in the alveoli wall as well as alveoli. There is no gaseous exchange. Alveoli that is mainly held for the exchange of gases, that is oxygen and carbon dioxide, isn't it? So the disease that is mainly damage destruction of this alveoli wall and air sacs. Then increase the growth of lung tissue, that is, it is a type of cancer. And then inflammation in the alveoli in the wall of bronchi, that is called bronchitis. This is again another respiratory problem, that is called bronchitis. And then thickening of artery wall of lungs, that is mainly due to the deposition of certain fat, cholesterol, etc. So here the answer, that is first one, that is destruction of alveoli wall. Alveoli, that is considered as the principal organ of gaseous exchange, that is found inside the lungs. There are millions of alveoli that is found in each lungs. Okay. So we can select first one. And then the next question, that is related to plants. The opening and closing of stomatal pore depends upon, the opening and closing of stomatal pore depends on. So what is meant by stomata? Stomata is the opening that is found in the epidermis or the outer side of leaf. So when we observe the structure of a leaf, this is the upper epidermis. So here there is a small specialized cells, these are called a guard cell. These are called a guard cells. These are called guard cells. So inside this there is a space, this space is called a stomata. So when we analyze the structure of this stomata, so these are the guard cells. So this opening, that is called as stomata. Stomata, that is as an opening that is found in the epidermis, that is mainly for gaseous exchange. And then on either side of this stomata there are two cells, these are called guard cells. These guard cells are kidney or bean shape in dicots, but it is a dumbbell shape. A dumbbell shape in monocots. What is meant by dumbbell shape? It is something like this. This is called a dumbbell shape. Okay. So the opening and closing of stomata, that is controlled by water. That means during daytime plants absorb more and more water. So these guard cells that become turgid, or guard cells that is filled with water, or guard cells that become turgid, and then that leads to the opening of stomata. And then during night time guard cells lose water, so it becomes flaccid. Guard cells become flaccid. So stomata closed. Stomata closed. So this opening and closing of stomata, that is mainly controlled by water, the presence of water in the guard cell. Guard cells become flaccid, or guard cells that is filled with water is shape that become a swollen bean like structure. If there is no water, the shape of this guard cells is something like this. So the stomata that become closed. So opening and closing of this stomata, that is depends on these guard cells. So when it is filled with water, this become highly expanded, and then stomata that become open. So we can say is that the presence of water, or we can say is that a turgidity of water, turgidity or presence of water, or turgidity of guard cells that control the opening and closing of stomata. So we can select water. So what are the main functions of guard cells? The guard cells that is mainly help for transpiration, and also a gaseous exchange, and it is also help for excretion. It is also considered as the excretory organ. So these are the main function of stomatum. So we can select C. Then our next question. 11th one. This question that is related with our two system, that is respiratory and digestive system. So here the image shows the transport of gases in the body through heart and lungs. Heart that is belongs to our circulatory system and lungs that is belongs to our respiratory system. So which of the following options show the transport of oxygen to a cell correctly? Here this is our lungs, isn't it? And this is the heart, and these are considered as the body parts. So here our heart, suppose this is a diagrammatic representation of this our heart. There are four lobes are there, four chambers, that is a left atrium, a left ventricle, a right atrium and right ventricle, isn't it? So the most important fact is that the left side of this heart that is filled with which type of blood? That is oxygenated blood. Here that is oxygenated blood, and then our right side of heart that is filled with deoxygenated blood, oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. So here from the lungs, air that is enters into lungs through respiratory tract, it is rich in oxygen. So from the lungs there is a blood vessel that is called a pulmonary vein. Pulmonary vein. This pulmonary vein that carry which type of blood? That is oxygenated blood to the left atrium. Okay. So from the left atrium this blood that is reaches into left ventricle. So here there is a valve that is called bicuspid valve. Then from this left ventricle, that is blood that is reaches to our tissues or body organs through a largest blood vessel. This blood vessel that is called aorta. This again carry oxygenated blood. So from the body parts or organs, as a result of metabolic reactions, a carbon dioxide rich blood that is reaches into a right atrium, and then here the blood is a deoxygenated blood and it is carried out by a blood vessel that is called vena cava, superior and inferior vena cava, and then from this right atrium blood that is reaches to right ventricle through a tricuspid valve, and then from this right ventricle this blood that is reaches to lungs. Which type of blood? That is a deoxygenated blood, isn't it? Through a blood vessel that is called a pulmonary artery. Okay, so here there is a representation that is from the lungs, pulmonary vein that carry blood to the left atrium, from the left atrium, left ventricle, then through aorta that is reaches to body tissues, and then from here vena cava that carry blood to right atrium, then to right ventricle, and then it is again through pulmonary artery that is reaches to lungs. This is called a double circulation, isn't it? Blood has to reach two times. Two types of circulation is there, and two times that is enters into heart for circulation. So here which of the following options show the transport of oxygen to the cell correctly? So oxygen that is transported from where? That is from the lungs. So the first part that is always lungs. So the blood vessel that carry blood that is called a pulmonary vein. So we can select from the lungs pulmonary vein. So there are two options which shows pulmonary vein, and then it is reaches to where? That is reaches to a left atrium. So here is the left atrium, but here is a right atrium. Right atrium that is vena cava. Vena cava that is reaches to right atrium. So this one is wrong. And then from the left atrium that is reaches to left ventricle, This is again correct. And from the left ventricle it is carried out by aorta. Is it okay? Yes. And then from that it is reaches to body cell. So we can select which option, that is first one. From the lungs through pulmonary vein, that is reaches to left atrium, left ventricle through aorta, that is reaches to body, isn't it? So we can select the first one. Is it clear, all of you? So that is the answer. And the next question, 12th. Read the question, that is, how is food transported from the phloem to the tissues according to plant's need? That is, identify the part of plants which synthesize food materials. Which part that is synthesize food materials, that is called leaves, isn't it? So, food that is synthesized here, and these food materials that is transported through phloem, isn't it? Phloem is the vascular tissue that carry food materials from word to word, from a source to sink. Source to sink. Which one is the source? That means the place where it synthesizes food materials, and sink is the place that receive the food materials. So here, which part is considered as the source? Leaves. Leaves are the places where food materials are synthesized. From the leaves, that food materials that is reaches to various parts, that is roots, then stem, fruits, branches, etc. Isn't it? So, how is food materials transported from phloem? That is first option. Food is transported along with water in the plant body parts. Food is transported in only one direction. One direction, that is takes place only water and minerals. The transport of food materials, that is bidirectional, or we can say that multi-directional, because it is takes place from leaves to various parts of the plant. So this is wrong. Food is transported from a region of low concentration to high. It is again wrong, because food that is produced in the leaves in high concentration as compared to that of other regions. So the last option, food is transported from the region where it is produced to the part of the plants, to other part of the plant. So we can select this one. That means food that is produced in which part? In the source. Source that is considered as the leaves, and it is transported into various plant parts, isn't it? So these various plant parts that is considered as the sink. So we can select a D option. So the transport of food materials that is mainly takes place through a phloem, and it is considered as the bidirectional, but the transport of water and minerals through xylem, that is considered as the unidirectional one. That is takes place from a root to aerial part. So the answer is D. So let us move to the next question. It's a very simple question that is related to our excretory system. So excretion, that is the elimination of waste materials. So in our body there is a system that is called the excretory system. Excretory system that is found in the abdominal regions on the dorsal side. And then what are the main organs of our excretory system? That is a pair of kidney, and then there is a tube-like structure that is arise from each kidney, that is called ureter, and then on the continuation there is a bladder-like structure that is called urinary bladder, and there is an opening that is called the urethra. All these together known as excretory system. So the question is that name the tube which connect the kidney to urinary bladder. So these are the two kidney that is commonly seen as a pairs. There are two kidneys, and this is the urinary bladder. Okay, so our question is that a tube-like structure that connect kidney to urinary bladder. So what is the name of that tube-like structure? This one is the tube-like structure, isn't it? So this tube-like structure that is called a ureter. Ureter. So there is a pair of kidney, a pair of ureter, a single urinary bladder, and single urethra. That is the organ for excretion, like excretory organs. So, we can select which one is the one, that is ureter. Urethra is the opening of this urinary bladder, and then nephron. What is meant by nephron? Nephron is the filters that is present inside each kidney, that is called nephrons. Nephrons are the filters or the organs that is mainly help for the filtration of blood. Then here there is two blood vessel that is provide blood to kidney, that is a renal artery, a pair of renal artery that provide blood to kidney. Actually, this renal artery is the branch of aorta, and then there are two blood vessels that carry away blood from kidney, that is deoxygenated blood, that is called renal veins, and the renal vein actually is the continuous, that is reaches to vena cava. So, that is represented here. There is a branch of aorta that is reaches to kidney, that is called renal artery. The branch of vena cava that carry blood from the kidney, that is renal veins. Okay, so we can select this one, that is ureter. Okay, and then next we have to discuss the next question. Question number 14. The procedure used for cleaning the blood of a person by separating urea from it. That means in certain person there is a condition that is called uremia. The uremia that is called kidney failure. Kidney failure. So in that cases our blood that is rich in urea. There is a failure of excretion of urea. So urea that is accumulated in our blood, as a result our body parts are become swollen. Joints, there is a swellings in our joints, etc. Then is in the face, etc. So that is called a uremia. So there is a remedial, or there is a treatments, or there is a remedial method that is adopted to cure this kidney failure condition. That means to save the person from this uremia is that one is called a dialysis. Dialysis, or we can say is that hemodialysis, and then otherwise we can transplant the organ, that means kidney transplantation. These are the two remedies to a person that is suffer from uremia. So what is meant by a dialysis? Dialysis, that means there is a filtration of blood that is takes place in an organ or in a machine that is fitted outside the body, not inside the body. That is filtration of blood that is takes place outside the body. Okay, that is called a dialysis. So it is a method that is mainly for the purification of blood. So there is a machine, there is a dialysis unit that is mainly held for dialysis. So here the procedure that is used for cleaning the blood of a person by separating urea, that method is called a dialysis. It is a method that is mainly to cure or to save the patient as suffer from this uremia. So in dialysis there is a machine, there is a dialysis unit is there. So in this dialysis unit there is a cellophane tube, a highly coiled cellophane tube is there, and then blood from our artery, blood from this artery that is enters into this tube like structure, and then it is circulated in through these tube like structures, and finally that is connected to a convenient vein. And then here there is a fluid, the fluid that is consists of all the components of plasma except nitrogenous waste, except nitrogenous waste. So when the blood that is passes through these tube like structures, all the waste materials from the blood that is released into this fluid, that is cellophane tube that is encircled by means of a fluid, and this fluid consists of all the components of plasma except nitrogenous phase. So when the blood that is passes through this tube, what happens? All the waste materials that is released into this fluid. So after removal of all these waste materials or nitrogenous waste, the purified blood that is enters into a convenient vein. This is called a dialysis unit, and this process that is called a dialysis. Okay. Then osmosis. What is meant by osmosis? Osmosis is the movement of water from high concentration to a low concentration through a semi-permeable membrane. This is mainly help for the absorption of water as well as movement of water. Filtration, that means purification, that is done by nephrons. Okay, double circulation, that is found in human beings. So this answer is C, that is a dialysis. Okay. Then the next question, the last question, that is which part of the nephron allow the selective reabsorption of useful substance like glucose, amino acid, salt, water into the blood capillary. So what is meant by nephrons? Nephrons are the functional unit of kidney. So when we observe the structure of kidney, it consists of numerous tube-like structures. These tube-like structures are called nephrons. These tube-like structures are called nephron. Nephrons, that is, act as a filter, isn't it? So when we observe the structure of these nephrons, it consists of a capsule-like structure that is called Bowman's capsule, and then in connected to this there is a tube-like structures, and then another highly coiled regions, and then collecting duct. These are the main parts of a nephrons. So these parts that is known as a renal tubule. So when the blood that is reaches into nephrons, this is called a Bowman's capsules. So when the blood that is reaches into Bowman's capsule, what happens? All the components of blood that is reaches, that is useful as well as harmful materials along with water, that is enters into this capsular space, and then this is called a glomerular filtrate. So when the glomerular filtrate that is passes through this part, this is called a renal tubule. The part of renal tubule, actually this part is called a Henle loop. Henle loops. When the filtrate that is passes through these tube-like structures, all the useful substances are reabsorbed. All the useful substances like that of glucose, amino acids, etc. are reabsorbed into the blood vessels that is surround this renal tubule. So all the useful substance that is reabsorbed, and then finally all the unwanted substance or the harmful substance that is reaches to this collecting duct, and it is released outside. So here the question is that which part of the nephron allow the selective reabsorption that is of useful substance like that of glucose, amino acid, salt, water into the blood capillary. So these are the blood capillaries. All the useful substances are reabsorbed from this tube-like structure that is called the renal tubules or the Henle loops. So renal tubules, that is all these part together known as renal tubules, and this U-shaped structure is called the Henle loop. So here which one is the answer? Bowman's capsule, that is mainly help for glomerular filtration, not for reabsorption, and ureter, that is mainly for help for passing urine from a kidney to urinary bladder, and then tubule is the structure, these are called renal tubules, and then C-shaped region that is especially called Henle loop. So we can select this one, renal tubules or tubules, renal tubule, or we can say that the part of a nephron, that means here to here, from here to here, that is called renal tubules, and this part is called PCT, and this part is called a DCT. So, this U-shaped region that is called Henle loop. So, PCT, the part of this renal tubules, the maximum reabsorption that is takes place in this PCT or proximal convoluted tubule. Proximal convoluted tubule. This part is mainly held for maximum reabsorption of substance, that is 70 to 80% of substance that is reabsorbed in PCT, and Henle loops that is mainly held for reabsorption of water as well as electrolyte. And again a DCT or a distal convoluted tubule, it is again held for the reabsorption of water. Reabsorption of water. So, here the reabsorption of water that is mainly takes place in, this is called Bowman's capsule, these are called renal tubules. So, we can select renal tubules or the tubules. Glomerulus that is mainly held for filtration. Bowman's capsule is again held for filtration. Ureter that carry urine from where to where, from the kidney to urinary bladder. So, we can select first option. So, that is all about the some questions that is related to life processes. So, all of you study very well and then good luck and thank you.